In today's episode of The Road to Unicum, we look at the T49. This is an American light tank, and along with the ELC AMX, this may be the most misunderstood or misplayed tank in all of World of Tanks. I struggled tremendously with this tank through my first 40 battles or so because I wasn't playing it correctly, and a lot of the challenge of this tank has to do with managing the gun. It has very high dispersion, something like 0.6, so it's very inaccurate, and it takes forever to aim, and the high explosive shell has a very slow shell velocity. So these three things combined can make the gun very difficult to use. And the secret behind it really is creating as many first shot opportunities as you can. So there's a couple ways to do it. Here I use my speed to get to a spot and pre-aim before an opposing tank can pop out. So this way I'm going to have the first shot advantage. And the fact that my gun is slow aiming isn't so much of an issue because the reticle was already closed in quite a bit from my pre-aiming. And because this is a light tank, you can do vision control games where if you've got a tank spotted and they don't see you, you can safely aim in. And the fact that the gun takes 3.4 seconds or sometimes longer to aim in isn't an issue. And because the gun has such a long reload after firing, I always make sure to back up into hard cover just in case I get spotted. So you can see with the white ring on the mini-map that Tiger's within my view range. I spot an STR VTD, but I choose to fire at the Scorpion, which is a big soft target, and I finish him off. So the fact that the gun handles terribly can very much be offset if you are correctly using your vision to create first shot opportunities. So again, this Artie, he may know that he's spotted, he ain't moving. This gives me plenty of time just to sit here and aim in fully and then one shot him. The other time it's safe to use the gun is, after an enemy tank is fired, either because they fired at you and missed or they fired at somebody else. I actually probably should have taken my time with that E50 since he'd already hit me. Sit there, let the reticle close all the way in, and then fire. One really nice thing is that the T49 is a fairly agile tank, so you can get around tanks to their backside or rear, and if you can, you want to fire on the rear of a tank or the engine deck, because if you get a full penetration, you're looking at around 900 damage. So let's take a look at this in a tier 10 Lakeville battle. It's important to consider what equipment to use. According to VB Addict, the three most popular equipment modules are vertical stabilizers, rammer, and vents. I actually prefer to use coated optics over vents because to the extent that you can outspot your opponents, especially if you're not spotted, that allows you to do those first shot opportunities which allow you to fully aim in, and the fact that the gun takes forever to aim doesn't matter. Some people argue that you shouldn't use a rammer because the gun handling is so bad and you're not going to be firing that much. I disagree. I think rammer is hugely important for this tank to help boost up the DPM, and you're going to get stuck in some brawling situation times where you really need that reload to be ready. This spot that Joy has pointed me to is awesome for spotting from the south side of Lakeville. This is the northeast corner of G7, and this building and bush have the trifecta for ideal spotting. It has a good field of view, there is adjacent or nearby hard cover, and there is soft cover. And so, these enemy tanks don't even see me. This T-54 lightweight, we've already hit him, and I want to help finish him off. If we get rid of him, they won't have anyone in the middle of the road, so that will really free us up from vision control. And I was going to pull the trigger there, but he just slides back in, and again, with the slow shell velocity, you have to wait until a target is sufficiently exposed that your shell is going to be able to travel and hit it. Now, it's really important whenever you play any light tank to keep an eye on where their light tanks are. So their T71 has stupidly gone into Valley, and that doesn't make any sense because he's going to get proxy spotted by tanks and his camo is of no value. So the lightweight was exposed enough for me to go ahead and finish him off, and then after firing, I back up behind the building for hard cover during my reload, and I also assumed that I'd been spotted. In this case, it turns out I'm not, so if I want to, I can reassume that position in case they have more tanks in the middle of the road to spot for my team. And I've already racked up over 2,400 spotting damage. So, that building and that bush is a really good place to start from the south side. And people on our team are telling that Object 140 on our team to push up the middle road. He really can safely move up to the E or F column, around E4, F4, since we've already cleared out their tanks in the middle of the map. And to some extent, I'm waiting for that 140. Now, if the 140, if he weren't there, what I would do is flex over to the, that lane over there, the 4 lane, and then move up the middle of the road. But because he's there, I don't want to be redundant with him. And I'm also trying to get a sense of, where their tanks are deployed within city. The one tank that hasn't been spotted yet is their T49 looks like was spotted in Valley. We don't know where he is, and so, I need to be careful about being on the west side of town because he can always flex over to the B4, B5 area, in which case, he can shoot down at me if I'm exposed on the west side of town, and, I'm very easy to penetrate. We're both in Sherman. So I'm watching the map. The 140 has pushed up now, and, there were several of our TDs who were giving him the correct advice that he needed to move up. So now we're in a good position to control the middle and eastern side of the map. I'm taking my time trying to figure out where to deploy, and this is the real trick with this tank. Because the gun handling is so bad, you want to be wary about where you go. I snapshot the STP there because his gun handling is superior to mine, and then the T49 has been spotted over by C4, and so I need to kind of tuck into this building so that the buildings between me and him offer hard cover. What this building here allows me to do is to set up for another first shot advantage. I am making one mistake. I am too far exposing my tank. So even though I land that shot right there for a nice juicy 465 damage, I need a shot in return. And this is one thing about the T49. It's fairly big for a light tank, and it's a little bit on the bulky side, so it's not going to be hard for opponents to hit you. You're a pretty large target. Jory, my platoon mate, is finishing off that medium tank that I just hit, and I'm setting up for the first shot advantage because I know the STB is spotted around here, and then the second he shows himself, I whack him for 768 damage. So that, HE gun is really potent, and one of the nice things about the HE gun is when it lands, it can damage pretty much anything. Now granted, you won't get, those high damage rolls of 700 plus unless you get a full penetration, but even, taking out chunks of health, 300-400 health at a time is pretty meaningful. So Jory and I are now flanking, or trying to flank these remaining tanks that are in city. Our idiots in Valley have defeated their idiots in Valley, and so we're pretty close on spotting. They're already in the T49 in the top half of the map, and I really have a choice here. I can either stay here with Jory, or I can help eliminate the tanks that they have that are going to be fleeing east of their cap zone. But I stay with Jory, because we're teamed together. We both have long reload times, but working together, we can protect one another. And what I did there was tap the STB once so that I could drop him into one-shot range for Jory. And we're in pretty good shape right now. We've got pretty good handle on the map. We've got it covered north and east, and we've got mid control. Their T49 YOLOs toward me, and we finish him off. And I actually had pulled in front of Jory intentionally. We knew the M103 was coming. I had more health than Jory did. Jory was one shot, and it's one of those situations where sacrificing some of my hit points is more important than, and Jory losing his. If Jory dies, our chance of managing these situations goes down a lot because he's got such good compact burst with the 3-shot autoloader. One really nice thing about the T49 is because you deal so much high explosive damage, if you hit tanks, there's a really good chance you're going to detract them, right? And this gives me the opportunity to go ahead and back out safely away from this Type 5 heavy. What's really inexplicable here is we were just up to 99 cap points, and then one of our tanks that was capping stepped off the cap. And it's not like we have an amazing lead here where the outcome is pretty much guaranteed. And so, I've talked about this before, people often misplay how they cap. When they were capping, we probably didn't need it, but since they accumulated 99 cap points, it was foolish to step off. We're giving them the chance to now come back, and I'm having to scramble like heck to get away from city. I can't brawl with those heavy tanks. It would take me multiple shots to kill them. One shot from them will kill me, and what I want is distance so that I can now resume playing vision control games with them. There are situations where capping makes sense. If they're smashing your tanks on the other side of the map but they're far away and you're losing, or they've got more heavies relative to your squishier tanks, capping them out because they won't make it back in time makes a lot of sense, especially if your team will lose any kind of, protracted fighting because they've simply got more hit points and armor. I have now pushed up along the middle road. This offers me a great field of vision and fire to cover their tanks if they try to exit out of the city, and that will enable my two friendly TDs to keep their guns active. Obviously I'm having to be careful because I am one-shottable, And in this particular case, the smart thing to do would be for the 140 to back up and get on cap. Because at this point now, if he gets on cap, they're kind of stuck in a bind. They either have to exit city to try to defend the cap, and I'll spot them from a mile away, and RTDs and I will get flanking shots on them, right? Or they can just squat in city while we cap them out. Now, either way, putting cap pressure now makes a lot of sense. And even though these are heavy tanks, obviously I don't have any softer tanks to fire at, and I'm not necessarily looking to do massive damage. I'm trying to cause disruption, whittle down their hit points, make it easy for my team to finish them off, and then, by hitting them with high explosive rounds, there's a good chance that I can detract them, potentially damage crew members, modules. Getting hit by high explosive is super annoying, and at this point, because the Object 140 is tucked in, there's no way he's going to get outspotted, especially with me here and him here. And we apply the cap pressure, and their VK decides not to come out and challenge it, and we win the match. So I got an Ace Tanker Mastery badge, patrol duty, dealt around 2,900 damage, and then added another 4K in spotting for good measure. And the spotting damage is really what helped us jump out to an early lead. Early damage wins games. I racked up 2,500 spotting within the first couple minutes of fighting, and that ended up making a big difference down the stretch. I originally wasn't going to cover the T49 because of the upcoming changes with the light tanks, but thankfully Wargaming decided to keep the HE gun on the T49, which really defines its gameplay, and I'm really looking forward to trying out the new adjusted light tanks. I think it'll be a lot of fun. Hope you enjoyed the video. Take care.